Hello. We are here at ARKAST conference.
It's exciting.
This is my first time. Is this your first time?
Yeah, well, not my first time at a podcast conference. This is my first time at a local podcast conference, which I think is kind of cool. It's needed, right? You know, I've participated in like Podcast Movement, and before that Blog World and New Media Expo, and those are all the precursors to what we're seeing as mainline traditional podcast events. And so, you know, Podcast Movement, PodFest, they've kind of done things at a national level. And, you know, every state has podcasters in it. So it's only appropriate that we have an event like this to promote the local podcasts that are within the confines of that, whatever state you're in this case, the natural state.
Yeah. I think it's great because there's so many different opportunities for meeting other podcasts. Yes. And I feel like oftentimes when you have a podcast, you kind of get in your lane of the kind of podcast that you have. But our podcasts, I'm sure, are very different. We just met, so I don't know.
What's your podcast about?
My podcast is a girl talk podcast.
About just what kind of girl talk?
So we talk about anything from what you're watching on Netflix to your husband snoring, things like that.
Okay,
My target market is sitting in the school pickup line.
Okay, all right.
It's women that have
taking kids to soccer practice. Okay,
too busy to have friends.
Yeah, that would be my wife and a lot of other women that I do know that do that. But yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of a podcast that has an audience, right? It's just a matter of finding that audience and, you know, making sure that they are aware that there's other people that are part of their tribe that are feeling and dealing with the same things.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Exactly. It's like the pseudo friendship, like the one-way friendship that we get to have.
Yeah, now that's
Tell me about your podcast.
Yeah, so I created I Am Northwest Arkansas 2019. We've been doing it for 4 years. It's as of Monday, I released episode 235. And it comes out weekly, and it covers the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in the Ozarks. And it's really, at its bare essence, it's the podcast I would have wanted when I moved here in 2013, but it didn't exist. So I created it like 6 years later. And here we are, fast forward to 2023, and it's taken on a life of its own. So yeah, I mean, I heard somebody say on the stage that, you know, there is a little bit of serendipity to podcasting because you really never know where it's going to lead. Mm-hmm. And every day that I wake up, I'm amazed at where, you know, my decision to press record on a little digital recorder and just to share my thoughts and to share the thoughts of other people with the world has, you know, led me to friendships, led me to relationships, led me to business opportunities, and just in general, it's afforded me an ability to have a conversation that I wouldn't have had I not stepped out, you know, got out of the boat, if you will, and tried something different as far as that's concerned. So,
well, I'm really grateful to have learned about your podcast today because I actually moved here in March of 22.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're a newbie.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to the area. So I'm grateful to have a resource like yours.
Well, you know, and it's so funny because I've actually had, I mean, I have several friends now that the podcast is the reason why they moved here. I'm thinking specifically of a couple that relocated here from San Diego, and they told me in no uncertain terms that my podcast was the reason why they made a commitment.
You have people changing their entire lives.
Yeah. I mean, I've had several. Yeah, but I had the weirdest interaction I've ever had was a guy and his wife pulled up to me with their 3 kids saying, "Hey, we just moved from Colorado Springs, and your podcast is the reason why we did it." I was like, "Oh my God!" Well, I hope you like it, right? Because don't get mad at me if you don't. But no, I mean, it's that more than anything else is humbling. That kind of feedback and interaction causes me to continue to just press record. That's why it's at this point, it's not, you know, I don't look at it as a job. It's really a labor of love. Now, it's afforded me some new opportunities and some things that I do with it. But I mean, again, it's just continuing to press record, share great stories, and encourage people, especially people that don't live here, that this is actually not a bad place to come, you know, and that the people that are here, just to remind them of how good of a place this is. And let's continue to keep it that way. And I'm on a mission because I think of, what do they say, 2045, Northwest Arkansas will be about 1 million people. It's one of the fastest growing MSAs in the country.
Yeah.
as of today, the day that we're recording this in September of 23, 36 new people a day moved to Northwest Arkansas.
36
every day, and you were one of them in 2022. so yeah. I mean, those numbers are, when you don't, it doesn't sound like a lot, but then when you start adding up the days and counting it, it's like every day.
Yeah.
That many people move here.
Yeah. And in an area like this, you're either growing or you're dying.
Amen to that. Yeah, no, that's without a doubt. So yeah, so I think it's important. So programs like this event are necessary in order to do a couple of things. One is to continue to stabilize the conversations that need to be happening here of all sorts. I mean, we heard somebody that has a podcast about reparations. There's so many different podcasts. I mean, I've met people that have a podcast about quilting, and that's a thing. That's like a big thing. Like she's got like a lot of people listening because they love quilting.
Yeah.
So, I know there's somebody listening to this that may have an idea for a podcast or may talk about something ad nauseum and think, oh, well, nobody else wants to hear that. No, you have a little tribe of people that would love to hear that. And that's the thing that you need to tap into. And that's like what you're doing with your podcast, tapping into a subset of an audience where you're going to speak their truth, and you will be the North Star for a lot of people that think that they're the only ones going through.
Yeah.
And that's important, right?
Yeah, it's important to find a sense of community. I think last night at the presentation he said something that rang true with me, is that podcasting is natively global.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really cool concept of how you can just have a global community and connect with people. The lady with quilting, she has a global community about quilting, even though she's in little old Northwest Arkansas. Or I have a global community of women who are too busy to make friends.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the amazing thing too, because you think about, like, we're just recording this right now. The minute that it does get edited and pushed out on the interwebs, I mean, you just never know who will listen. I'm amazed. I have somebody that's down in Australia, and I don't know who they are, but they listen to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Yeah. And I got several people actually in Anchorage, Alaska, of all places, that listen to my podcast on a regular basis. I'm assuming they're either they're originally from here and they like to think about here, or just stay updated on what's happening in the area, right? Because if you go away, I've met people that are from here that don't live here anymore, and they're like, man, I had no idea when I went back home how much this place has grown. And so when I talk to people that are originally from here and then come back, they're like, I don't even recognize it. It's insane, so.
I think something like 3% of our listeners are from South Africa.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, and that's the beauty of analytics and being able to keep track of that information. But again, it gets back to what I said originally. You just don't know who's listening. And more importantly, that's why I take this platform, as I shared on the stage, why this platform is so powerful. I mean, the voice is so powerful. And when you harness that properly and you use it for good, like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. When you get that mic in front of you, you've got a lot of power there. You got to wield it properly. And you'd be surprised the lives that will be impacted by the words that come out of your mouth and become digital ones and zeros, and then end up on the other side in somebody's, I was about to say Walkman and date myself, but in somebody's iPhone. So
yeah, exactly. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Absolutely, Charlie. Thank you so much. What's the name of your podcast again?
The name of my podcast is Saturday Night Sleepover.
And it's on every platform, right?
It's anywhere you can listen to podcasts.
Saturday Night Sleepover. Yes, I remember those. Those used to be a thing back in the day. So yeah, that's very cool. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing. And again, my name is Randy Wilburn. For anybody listening, I've got a great podcast. I Am Northwest Arkansas on every major platform. And certainly, if you're thinking about moving to this area, whether you want to come here just for the podcast events, or if you just want to come here because you like mountain biking, you definitely should consider coming here. And if you already live here, but you're not taking advantage of everything that's right outside of your doorstep, well, you need to get some rest and get up on a Saturday morning really early, get a good breakfast, and take in all that Northwest Arkansas has to offer. Because I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed.
Hey, so you're Saturday morning podcast and I'm Saturday night podcast.
There you go.
There we go.
Excellent. That works perfectly. That works perfectly. So
It was great to meet you.
yeah, same here, Charlie.